Yo, 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 what is going on, real lovers? We are back with another Right to Real Love live show. It's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, so y'all already know we got a good show lined up for y'all today. As you can see, it's a MenChat show. So that's one of our best shows because we got an all-male panel coming on tonight to discuss a topic that I know the ladies are interested in, which is why do men lose interest in women? We're going to dive into that tonight. But first and foremost, I want to have each of the men on our panel introduce themselves, let you know a little bit about them. So I'm gonna come over to the first gentleman that we got joining us tonight, my man Q. What's going on with you, bro?
What's going on, Jay? I appreciate you inviting me on, man. It's great to be here. Just a little bit about me. My name is Quincy, and I'm 50 years old, married. I've been married for about 4 or 5 months now, and so I'm still in that newlywed stage. And I'm in Jack. Thank you. I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, born and raised here in the South. And as far as what I do, I host my own podcast called the Talk to Q Radio Show. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight, man. I want to hear what these guys have to say.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun and congratulations, man. Yo, Q the newlywed out here in the building, man. Yo, and Q's show is amazing, you guys. Definitely want to make sure you go and check it out. It's on YouTube. Talk to Q. Y'all see it on the in his name. So definitely go search it, open a new tab, go subscribe, and show him some love, you guys. And none other, my man Chris Richardson. What's going on with you, bro?
Jay, the one and only man. It's good to be here, brother. Good to be back with you. I'm Chris Richardson. I used to be I'm a retired former Real Talk with Chris talk show host, former author as well. And Q, since we dropping ages in the chat, man, and putting that out there, I'm 50 as well, brother.
Okay, okay.
So we gonna just drop it like it's hot, then,
Man
okay?
as well,
Right.
man. You don't look it, man. You don't
Hey,
look it.
hey, listen, what we try to do. They say black don't crack, right? So that's what we're supposed to do,
Facts.
man. Hey, look, I'm representing the ball here too, just like you. Hey,
Yeah.
Q, last thing though, I can't get this thing to grow in, man. I just don't know what I gotta do.
I don't know, man. I think the trick is, man, to concentrate really hard, and all of this from up here moves down there.
Oh man, yo, Chris, so glad to have you on, man. As you stated, you used to have your own show, Real Talk, and you always keep it real. I remember when you were a guest on the audio podcast for Right to Real Love, you came on and dropped so many golden nuggets. So I promise y'all are in for a treat tonight, man, with all of the men on the panel. Before I come down to the fellas at the bottom of our screen, let me go ahead and quickly give some shout outs to those in the chat. So my man, Hungry Millennial is in the building. Salute to you, bro. So glad to have you joining us here today. Got my girl Portia in here. What's going on? She says, hey, everyone, looking forward to tuning in to tonight's discussion. Portia, you are always welcome. You are such an amazing contributor to our show, sponsoring multiple shows. So happy to have you in the building tonight. So thank you so much for joining us. Got my man Andre Pearson, a fellow guest. He was on the podcast not too long ago or here on the live show. So definitely appreciate him stopping by and joining us as well. Got my man James Smith in the building. What is going on, James? So glad to have you joining us on this show. I appreciate that. It was good talking to you earlier today as well, man. And my girl Portia once again. And we got Tiffany in the building. She says, hey, Jay and men on the panel, looking forward to a great show. Yeah, it's going to be a great one tonight. I promise y'all that. So then we got the Dojo of Manhood. My man Black Belt always dropping gems. He says, no input today, just here to support. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Black Belt. And another brother dropping so many gems recently was a guest as a men chat guest on the show. My man Josh Love Talk, always dropping gems. So glad to have you here with us as well. So one more. We had one come in right here from Jimbo. Hey, sir, glad to be here. So glad to have you in the building as well. So let's come down to my man CEO, returning guest on the live show. How you doing today, bro?
I'm good. Good. What about you?
I'm doing amazing, man. Excited for tonight's show, man. Definitely happy to have you come back on. Let the people know a little bit about you.
As the name says, Mr. CEO status. I'm not in the 50 club yet. I'm like 42, so I'm holding on to my age. Um, you want to follow me? I'm on Instagram and TikTok under the same name. And as always, Jay, whenever you throw up the J bat signal, I'm always gonna show up.
I like that, yo. The J Bass signal. That's a new one. I like that. I like that. So glad to have you back on with us, man. Emmanuel, what is going on, bro, man? So glad to have you on the live show tonight. Definitely let our real lovers and viewers know a little bit about you.
Yeah, man, Jay, I'm so humbled and honored to have the opportunity to be on the show with you again. I'm excited to be live with you and just so, happy and proud for all that God is doing in your life. as Jay said, my name is Emmanuel Thomas. I'm 25 years old, so I may be the youngest on the team here. So I look forward to. I got my book and my pen ready to take notes and learn as much as I can. But I'm married. June will be 2 years for my wife and I. We courted for 7 years before we got married. So we met at very young ages. We currently have a personal blog called Courting God's Way. And so our heart is for young people to understand courtship, and understand that leading up to marriage. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Oh yeah, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here, Emmanuel. And you smart, man. I was just talking to somebody this weekend about being in a position when there are married people on a panel as either an unmarried person or a younger person to be like, let me take notes, let me collect this data, and to see you actually demonstrating what I was talking about this past weekend, man, that's what it's all about right there, bro. So I know you're gonna get some gems from the fellas that are joining us tonight. So last but definitely not least, my man Brian, man, you was dropping so many gems on us in chat last week. So glad to have you on screen and on the show with us today.
Great to be here. Great to be here. Congratulations, Q, Emmanuel. It's a big step. Unfortunately for me, I'm recently divorced. I am in the 50 club. I'll be 52 in September. Um, my name is Brian. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am active. I met Jay. It's one of the stories when I shared the promo was that I met Jay way back when we were the written blog. Wasn't no podcast or anything like that. So I still maintain a personal blog. It's basically just an online journal now. Nothing to promote, just out here hoping I can drop some dimes on the show tonight.
Oh, I know
So
that's about to happen. Yeah, man. And it's such a blessing, just to see all of you gentlemen on the show, having connected with you guys at different stages of my life and my journey as a content creator, from Brian when I was blogging and meeting many of you when I was an audio podcaster. And now, for you guys to still be connected with me and willing to come on and do the live show, that really means a lot to me. And I'm appreciative of all you. And I know tonight is going to be a great show. Before we get into our first question, I want to quickly give some more shout outs to people who have joined us. So quickly, my girl JD Clay is in the building. She says, good evening, panel and chat mates. So glad to have you here. My girl Brittany is back with us this week. She says, this is about to be good. I can tell. I got my notebook and pen. You are a very wise and smart woman. Yes, get ready to take notes. And James says, thank you, Jay. I really appreciate you, sir. It was great talking to you today. Yes, man. It was a great conversation, man. James, definitely appreciate it. He's showing some love for you, Emmanuel. So definitely, let's get into this, y'all. So first and foremost, I want to kick things off with what I think is kind of like an easy question. Does a man losing interest in a woman always mean that he no longer likes her? Some women just want to know, does that mean it's over? My chances are done with? Let's start with my man Chris. Is it over if he loses interest?
It all depends, man, because here's the deal. There's a difference between when you're single and dating, or as Emmanuel would say, courting, right? If you're in the courtship process versus your sports fishing. There's also a difference that if you are married in a situation where you got to talk about, have I lost interest? You see what I'm saying? So let me answer that. If you're single, you got options. If you married, you got to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Am I right, fellas? At the end of the day, you got to figure it out, right?
That's facts. I like that. So coming over to you, Q, what do you think, man? If he loses interest, is that it?
Not necessarily. I agree with Chris. I think it depends on what kind of relationship you all have, whether you're dating, in a relationship or married. And also, it depends on effort. It's like if you're not seeing the effort, then at that point, maybe it can be over. But sometimes people are just ignorant to something being wrong, and once you alert them to it, they can come correct and fix everything. So there are a lot of variables, but no, it's not necessarily over.
Okay, cool. See, I want to get a feel of the room. That's why I throw out this live for everybody, so everybody can get a little taste and a feel of where you guys are standing on this one. So, Emmanuel, coming over to you, man. What's your take? If a man loses interest in a woman, does that mean he no longer likes her?
Definitely agree with the other two gentlemen. It depends on the situation. If you're married, you lose interest. That doesn't necessarily mean it's over. Like Brother Chris said, you got to figure it out, work some things out. I believe marriage is all about compromise. So you have to change some things, see what works for you. with dating, it could be different, because you're still, like Brother Chris said, you still kind of fishing, trying to figure out what you want. I call the dating process like an interview process. You're trying to figure out who you want to be with, what you want, and things like that. Courtship, I also believe you got to kind of compromise, figure it out, write down the plan, because usually when you get to that phase in a relationship, that's the person you want to marry. So I wouldn't say it's not necessarily done. I would just say compromise is a huge thing with relationships, especially with courtship and marriage.
I hear that. Great distinction. Great distinction. Coming over to you, Brian. What's your take? Does a man lose an interest in a woman always mean that he no longer likes her?
Kind of mirroring what everyone else has said. I don't believe that it's so, but just like Chris said, this where we are now, the options. So, rather than invest the time to make something work or try to make it work, there's a lot of options out there. So people just, for whatever reason, just decide to move on. So
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. And coming over to you, CEO, just to get your take on this. He no longer likes her if he lost interest?
Not necessarily. It's like the other fella said. It's situational. Like it could be that they may not be on the same page anymore. They may not be going in the same direction. Doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't like her. He just might need some clarity on whether or not they're going to continue in the same direction, similar to being like a fork in the road. When they meet that fork, okay, I'm going left. He might expect her to go left too, but then if he goes right, then both of them have a decision they got to make.
Nah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I asked that question to everybody because I wanted everybody to kind of get a baseline for where you guys are. As you can see, each of you are very sound-minded, grounded men. So that lets everybody know we're about to get into some great conversation. So I don't like to keep people waiting. So let's get right into one of the main things of tonight's topic, which are the signs that a man is losing interest in a woman. Q, give us one or two, and I'm gonna come around and get one or two from everybody else. So what would be one or two signs that a man is losing interest?
Um, well, he can grow distant. I think that's the main sign. He just doesn't seem to be emotionally available or present in the moment, so to speak. It's like his mind is elsewhere. So that's what I would like to start off with. Just he kind of drifts off a little bit.
That's good. That's good. And we had a comment come in from James. He says, if a man doesn't understand a woman, it's hard for him to stay. The Bible says to deal with women according to knowledge. So that was a gem right there that he dropped. So coming over to you, Brian, what is one or two signs that a man is starting to lose interest in a woman?
kind of want to back up and put things in perspective just a second, and I think it'll answer the question. We kind of refer to the dating as a game, and depending on the perspective, if you're not winning, if you're not hitting the shot, then you kind of pull back, you fall away. It's probably the biggest factor in a man or a woman, for that matter, losing interest. And as the two gentlemen have already said, it's worth the conversation to figure out where things are to see where things are going. One of the things everyone's mirrored, kind of just pulling back, not doing the same things that we used to do. There used to be those first morning, good morning text and how you doing check-ins. Those probably start to fade off a little bit. Not available as much as often as you normally would be. So just pulling back, I think, is a telltale sign.
Okay, that's good. Yo, kind of co-sign what Q was saying. Yo, once you get that distance involved, yo, you need to start taking notice of that. Coming up to you, Chris, what's one or two signs that a man is starting to lose interest in a woman?
Hey, I'm gonna give you something a little different spin. If he treats
Okay.
his dog better than you, he's losing interest, right? Because in the beginning, right? Look, for real, that's it. Real talk, right? In the
That's
beginning,
real.
it's hot and heavy. You can't do no wrong. But then when you start to look at that dog in a different way, you on the back burner. I'm just saying.
Yo, that's real. That's real. I like that one. I like that one. Coming over to you, CEO. What's one sign that a man is starting to lose interest in a woman?
His patterns change. His
Hmm.
patterns change, and sometimes his likes and dislikes, and his interests change as well.
Okay. And Emmanuel, coming over to you. What's one or two signs that a man is starting to lose interest in a woman?
I would definitely say his attention span. If he's paying attention to certain things he will pick up on before he's not picking on anymore. So pretty much, just whatever like Brother Chris said, if he don't have your attention, if he paying more attention to the TV or to his phone, to his dog, whatever, you may want to be careful. You need to watch out.
Nah, that's good. That's good. So actually coming back up to you with this one, Chris, why is attention so important for women to have when it comes to the man in their life? Like, why don't they want to lose his attention?
See, here's the thing. A man is very intentional, usually, and deliberate. When he knows what he wants, and he wants what he wants, because we're typically like the lion. We're a predator, right? We seek, and we like to, divide and conquer and all those good things that, in that sense. So ultimately, if we lose attention, that's a wrap. It starts to go south from there, because now he's not intentional as much as he used to be with that. See what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. Being intentional is key. Like, because if you're not intentional about something, then the interest level, like you're mentioning, is very low. Because it's like if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's not really the approach you want. If you're taking the guy serious, and then you're thinking he's taking you serious, but he's not. If there's no intention involved. So that's a really
Right.
great point, Chris. And we actually had a comment that came in from Andre. He was saying a man could lose interest in a woman for any reason, her lack of ambition, drive, or confidence in herself, just to name a few. And then Tiffany is laughing at the dog. That's right. And JD is co-signing what you said as well, CEO. So I want to come over to my man Q. So when we look at the whole distance thing, right? Like why do some men choose to distance themselves from women instead of being more direct? Because we often hear people talk about how direct men are, but then adding the distance means that that's not really a direct way of approaching the situation. So why is that often an option?
A lot of times to avoid confrontation or hurting feelings. Those are the two main options. There are some people who will sit, there are some men who will sit in an unhappy relationship because either they're trying to figure out how to get out if it's getting to that point. They're waiting on her to change, which we all know people usually are who they are. So a lot of times there is no change involved. Uh, so we try to figure it out, and we know that if we approach them and we're direct, then it's going to either hurt some feelings or it's going to get confrontational, and she's going to hurt your feelings. So, uh, I think it's kind of a methodical approach a lot of times that requires a lot of delay that we probably don't want the relationship to go further on down the line, but we just can't figure out what to do to make things change.
Nah, that's real. That's real. And I actually seen a comment that just came in from PK Chronicles. Good question asked here. How are we defining losing interest? I ask as I believe a loss of interest can happen even in happy relationships. We as humans evolve and change daily. The things we want today, we may hate tomorrow. So that's a really great question. And let's come over to you with this one, Brian. How do you define losing interest? Like when we talk about a man losing interest, what does that look like for you?
I agree with the comment and kind of how the question is phrased. Um, when we, the more time that we spend with someone, the more we get to know who they are. So that loss of interest could be change in values. You have different values, different, it could be a myriad of things that differ at that point. And also some unrealistic expectations. You may go into it believing that this person is that, and it's not. And you may not be able to put that into, you may not understand it at the time. So that's kind of why you're trying to figure out how to move out of the relationship because you don't yourself understand what's going on. Don't know how to phrase it as a conversation to ask and to ask for what you need. I think also some of us may require more attention than we believe we need. And if we're not getting that, we feel like it's not being reciprocated, then we will kind of just back away and lose interest that way as well. So,
Nah, that's good. That's good. Emmanuel, what's your take when you look at how losing interest is defined? Like, how do you define it?
I would say what losing interest is, you don't feel the same about the person that you did before. You might have saw something that kind of turned you away from that person, or the spark just isn't there anymore. You saw those good morning texts, and then all of a sudden now it's just like I don't feel like sending her no text, or things like that. And most likely something has gotten in the way. There's usually a root cause for that. It doesn't. I've never really known it to just happen out of nowhere. Usually there's a root or an issue that causes someone to lose interest. It could be random. It could be something that's obvious. But that's kind of how I would define losing interest. Is something had to happen. There has to be some root that says, you know what, I need to kind of turn away from this person, or there's something that's getting in the way between my the feelings that I have for you, because we know relationships, you can't really be emotional because emotional emotions can get out of hand. But I mean, it's a part of love, it's a part of being in a relationship, is your emotions, and whether you know how to control them or not is the key. But I would say it's a big emotional thing, losing interest. It has a lot to do with your emotions, and there's a root to it. There's a root to everything. There's a root cause or an issue. So that's my definition of it.
No, that's good. And I feel like Emmanuel and Brian did a good job of kind of laying out that definition of what it means to lose interest. Is there anything, Q, Chris, or CEO, that you would add to that definition that wasn't already mentioned?
Hey, I like what both of them said. I'll add to what Brian said, if I may, with the liberty of
Sure,
doing that.
of course.
Brian's spot on, and so is Emmanuel. Now, beliefs and values come from experiences usually, right? Something that you were taught or something that you caught, like growing up, you know what I'm saying? So to his point, if in a belief that if our values have now shifted, now we're out of alignment, so I've lost interest. And the other things to that is, like, a lot of times is that if there is a situation that comes up where there's conflict, right? Then you start to see how a person deals with challenge, change, and compromise. We use that word a couple times already, but if we can't compromise in a situation where everything has to be, escalated to the ninth degree, that's going to create a guy to lose interest in it because he don't feel safe around you.
That is excellent point. Excellent point. Yo, all of y'all dropping so many gems. We got a few more comments that came in. So first one, Portia was saying, I agree with the root talk. There is almost always a reason behind the loss of interest. And I totally agree with that. And then we also had a comment that came in from Tiffany. She says, if it was something to cause you to turn away, what will motivate you to express that rather than distancing yourself? So we also had another question that came in from Andrea, but since we were already talking about the distancing, I'm going to have us address this one first. And then Andrea, we're going to come over to yours. Thank you so much for joining us. Definitely appreciate it. So CEO, what's your take to Tiffany's question? What would motivate a man to express rather than distance himself from a woman that he's losing interest in?
For me, what would motivate me to express is wanting to find a solution to the issue. Like, if whatever this issue is, if it's disrupting my peace, which is what I should have when I come home, then, like I said, I want to get to the root of the issue. Like, what is the issue? Is it something that I didn't do? Is it something that I didn't say? Like, I want to know what the root of the issue is. Now, if it's something that is always coming up and we're always having this discussion, and then we just agree to disagree, but then it's a reoccurring cycle, then in that situation, then I will distance myself because I already know what the end result is going to be. So my motivation is wanting to come to a resolution, but then also having a willing partner that also wants to come to a resolution as well.
No, that's real. Anything anybody want to add to this question from Tiffany before?
Yeah, I'll add something.
Yes.
My motivation would be that I really like her, and that's not always a good thing, but sometimes you like someone so much that it's like, okay, we got to figure out how to work this out, you know. And so that can be your motivation to try to approach them and let them know, hey, this is what's going on, and see if you can fix it, because you really like the person, you really think something's there. Now, if it's a situation where it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, it's a long list of things you don't like, then yeah, you may not say anything and distance yourself. But if you really like them, yeah, you'll say something.
Nah, that's a good point. Excellent point. So coming over to Andrea's question, I'm coming to bring this one over to you, Chris. Andrea wants to know, I just don't understand why a man will string a girl along if he does not see it working. So it's kind of like the opposite of reversing. It's the man choosing to stay in this relationship even though he's lost interest in the woman. Why do men string women along like that?
Because you know how the saying goes sometimes. Now it all depends on where you are within the relationship, but
Right.
what's the saying? Why buy the milk if you, or you see what I'm saying with that?
How about a cow if you get the milk for
If you can
free?
get the milk for free. So I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm getting what I want already, then that's what you're there for. So now I've compartmentalized you. You see what I'm saying? So if you ultimately it's been, hey, we was having fun, we was kicking it. Now it all depends, because if we go to what Emmanuel's saying, if you're doing it the right way, then we're being celibate. Okay, cool. Now, some people practice abstinence, some people practice celibacy, and some people don't practice nothing. They just do whatever. We free spirits, as you say, right? To each his own, right? I ain't got a heaven or hell to put you in. But at the end of the day, that's really why he'll string it along, is because there's some benefit to that. And or he's unsure. Right. So at the end of the day, I think this might work. I like Q said, I like you. I want this to work. But at the end of the day, just like CEO, I'm not sure the end result is going to be the right thing for me. So let me just play this one safe. I'm going to distance myself.
Excellent point, Chris, because to me, and I'm speaking to Andrea, like it really depends on perspective. The one thing that you have to recognize is that the man and the woman's perspective is not always in alignment. So to the woman, she's like, oh, I'm being strung along. To the man, to Chris's point, you're still there because he's getting a benefit from you. It could be different depending on the situation and depending on the woman. But I promise you, a man that has lost interest in you does not still have you in his life unless there is some value that you are bringing to it. You may look at it and be like, there's no value that he's bringing to me. I want to be with him for whatever reason. And you feel like you're being strung along. To him, he don't feel like he's stringing you along. He just feels like he's receiving the benefits that you're still willing to provide him with. So that's the way that I kind of look at that. Emmanuel, what's your take on men stringing women along? Anything you want to add to what Andrea wanted to know?
Yeah, definitely. Just from a woman's perspective, because my wife and I we courted for those 7 years. My advice, to any woman out there is to make sure you have boundaries. Because you should never feel like you're just kind of being thrown around or being drug along with the man. You have to have your boundaries. You have to know what you are worth as well. As a woman, and when I think about Angel now, when we were courting, she made it very clear, even though I had respect for her, that she wanted to stay pure to marriage. So I knew, like, way ahead of time, that was going to be big for us in our relationship. And so, when you feel like you're being strung along or, anything like that, you want to let that man know up front. I'm just saying, if this is a real life situation, let them know up front your values. Let them know up front, this is my boundaries. This is what we're going to do, my standards. And same thing with the man, let each other know up front. So that way, during the, going down that line in a relationship, it's not some surprise. Like, why you just dragging me along? Why we just here? It's not, there's no spark. There's no interest here. I'm just being thrown around however you want me to go. We both have boundaries. We both have values. We both have standards, and we're going to respect each other, values and standards, and that way no one feels like they just kind of being thrown the wrong or strung along. So yeah, I hope that kind of adds something to it.
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So we actually had a comment. Where is that one at? Okay,
Jay.
right here. So, oh no, somebody had something they want to say before I bring
Yeah,
this up.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say to piggyback off of Chris's point. Um, you know how we hear all the time that women will date multiple men to build a man. Well, there are men that date multiple women to build a woman as well. And we learned that from listening to women talk. And then there are also men who they'll string a woman along for the simple fact that, hey, if I'm not with her, I'm not gonna have a roof over my head. Or she might be my way to work. Or if I'm not with her, I'm stuck eating fast food because at least she cooks. At least I'll have a clean house. So, like I said, to piggyback off of Chris's point, it is advantageous for a lot of men as to why they will string something along. They'll do just enough to confuse the female, not necessarily solidify that yes, she is the person that he wants to be with. It'll be more to confuse her and to put her in a state of confusion while his ultimate motive is trying to figure out his next move or secure his next spot after her.
Nah, that's gems. That's gems right there. So I got a comment that came in that I want to read from Jimbo. Before I get to that one though, Portia dropped a golden nugget on us, everybody in the chat. She says, nobody can put your life in limbo unless you let them. Express boundaries, values, and standards are so important early on. And I totally co-sign that. I agree completely. Now, there was this comment. I'm going to come over to you with this one, Brian. So Jimbo says, I think it's because men don't like to be alone and will string a girl along until he replaces her with the next great thing. Um, do you think that that's what men are doing? They're stringing her along until they can replace her with the next great thing. What's your take on that, Brian?
I don't disagree with that. I
Mm-hmm.
I also think, kind of go back to what Q said about really liking someone. In my mind, I'm thinking early on in the dating stage. So you express those values, you tell people where you are. I'll give you a recent example. I'm recently divorced, started seeing someone, told them I'm not looking for anything serious, not trying to be in a relationship. They, on the other hand, were looking for a husband. There's no reason we should have continued. There's no reason whatsoever that we should have continued. Both of us did, still doing things primarily because we liked each other. There is that interest. We all have a list of intangibles and deal breakers and things like that. So those started to pile up, and I held on. So I don't think I was stringing along. Maybe I was expecting things to change or be better. It wasn't until I made the conscious decision to say, hey, we're on two different paths. There's no reason for us to continue. It's early on. There's there's nothing to be lost. There's nothing. It should just be a clean break. So while I do agree with that, I do believe men have a tendency to string women along, but there also can be that piece where it's not really stringing along, where you're just kind of holding on, playing the waiting game to see if things are even out.
Good. That's good. That's good. And we got another gem that was dropped over in the chat by Andrea. She says, I think women need to work on putting themselves first like men naturally do. And it's real. I think people get in this mindset of thinking that you are going to be thought to be selfish or you shouldn't put yourself first. But by all means, you have to look out for you. If you're not, nobody else is not, especially when you think about how wild the dating scene is nowadays. You have to keep yourself protected, and your first line of defense is yourself. So I would definitely have to co-sign what Andrea is saying here. So most definitely. Now, what I want to do, we have some other questions. Ebony, I saw your question. I'm gonna come back to it, but before we go, I know we only have my man Q and Chris for another 30 minutes, so I want to make the most of it. And I want to come up to Chris and ask you, man, can you tell us a story or a time when there was a woman that you was feeling and at some point you lost interest in her? Like, what's the story behind why that happened and what was the ultimate result in that situation?
Oh man, this is my nemesis story right here. This is like the one that hurt me the most, Yeah, so back in the day, right? This takes me back to the 90s, I think. This is when I was on the come up, if you will. Still on the come up, but y'all get what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure it out. Just getting out the military and all that stuff. I went on this date with this chick. I was extremely attracted to her. She worked on a radio station at that time in DC. KYS was becoming big, and she was, a voice on KYS. So, I worked at Giant. I had, at that point, ATM cards were basically barely existent, right? So she invited me out on a date. Now, the issue I have, I'm old school. If you invite me, hey fellas, co-sign with me if you can. If you invite me, that means the invitation is coming from you paying, unless you say otherwise. Am I right? Can I get a co-signer? So
Yeah,
if
that's
I
right.
invite you, that means I got you. She invited me out. So we go to this restaurant in Laurel and everything. And so when the bill came, I had enough in my account or in my pocket to cover me, but not for us. So at that point, it went south. A CEO, brother, I'm talking about lose interest. I lost her number, the whole nine, don't call, no nothing, because she had to go to the bank. She took my car, I think, to do it. It was just one of them situations that, at that point, I was scarred. And I said, from this point on out, that was a traumatic experience for me, Brian. I was like, I had not been the same. So when it came from that point, I was very intentional, ladies, about saying, hey, look, let's have this conversation up front. What's your expectations? Okay. So we can be real clear. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yo, I love it. Yo, Tiffany's like, brother Chris. Yes, yo. I told y'all he wasn't real talk with Chris for no reason, man. Yo, he keep it 100. So coming over to you, Q, man. What's the story in a situation where you was feeling a woman, eventually lost some interest? How did that situation turn out for you?
Um, well, the first thing that comes to mind is there was a woman I was dating. She was a single mom, and really liked her. I mean, she was super attractive and she was very smart, and just carried herself well, with some class. And that was the main thing I enjoyed about her, the fact that she was hardworking and she was classy. And so we went out for a little while, and I can't remember how it happened, but I finally got an opportunity to meet one of her kids. And so I met one of the kids, and the kid was cool, respectful, and all that stuff. And evidently, the kid forgot to do a chore or something, and she bungee cord snapped. She cursed that kid out like she was Bernie Mac. And I was like, this is this classy woman that I just thought so highly of, and it really just kind of made me do a 180 behind that, because she just went in on that kid and cursed that kid out like a grown dude. And so I had to kind of go the other way on that one. But I was really feeling her up until that point. I mean, that had been a couple of months.
Yo, I feel you, man, because I don't know how you was thinking, but in my mind, I'm like, how long before she start talking to me like that? Because it's just a matter of time, man. You slip up, you say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and it's like, oh man, like I just got all the way cussed out, and
Right.
man, you saw the writing on the wall and you got out of there quick, bro. I ain't mad at that. Emmanuel, coming down to you, man. Has there ever been a time when you may have lost interest in a woman that you was feeling, and if so, like how'd that situation turn out for you?
Mind you, I started dating my wife when I was 14.
Right.
But
So you can tell us
and
about
we
how
was
you was able
convinced,
to make it
but
work.
but I will say this, I will throw this out there just to throw it out there. When I was about 13, I was real heavy in the youth ministry at my church, and I was kind of like right up under the youth pastor. He was my mentor, so he was always kind of carrying me along to different conferences and things like that. There was one girl in particular. She would always come up to me after every service, want me to pray for her and all this kind of stuff. And every single service she had a prayer request. And one Sunday after, service, she came up to me and she said, Brother Emmanuel, I need you to pray for me. Mind you, I'm 13, so she probably about 14 or 15. She was a little older than me. And she said, I need you to lay hands on my stomach. I'm having constipation issues. And I'm like, you want me to pray for you, lay hands on your stomach because you having constipation issues? That's taking it a little bit too far. So yeah, that's a little interesting story right there. But
Yo, that's wild. Yo, that's next level, man. I never would have thought that was about to come out of that story. Yo, this is why I love stories, man. You never know where they're gonna take you, man. That right there is hilarious. So before I come over to my man CEO, let me go through some of these comments, man. So, Chris, they was laughing at some of the things you were saying. They applaud you, Chris. Definitely give you some props over here. Then Portia says, could have had a chat over some PB and J just to get to know y'all. Chris, save y'all both some coins. Thanks for sharing your story. And then Andrea, yo, she caught that look that you made, Q. I definitely seen it when Q was like, like, what is going on here? And Tiffany says her character, her true character came out. That is so sad she treated her children that way. Real talk. And then Ebony says, never go with a woman who cursed her baby out like a grown man. That is real talk. JD is laughing at the constipation story. And Jimbo says, absolutely. I think both people send representatives at first before the real people manifest. Real talk. So, CEO, man, tell us a story, man. A woman you was feeling, you lost interest. How did it play out?
All right. So there was this chick that I was trying to talk to, and we kept playing hit or miss. Like I would either be in a relationship and she would be single or vice versa. So we actually were on the same page. She finally invited me to her house. It just so happened the apartments that she lived in were apartments that I used to stay in, so I knew the layout. So she was like, well, I don't feel like cooking. So, just bring a pizza, a 2 liter, and bring some plastic cups. Now, the plastic cups kind of threw me off guard, but I was like, you know what? Maybe you don't feel like doing dishes. So I get to her house, and there's no place for me to sit the pizza, the 2 liter, or the cup. Like, there are dishes in both sinks. The dishwasher is open. There's cups on the counter. I'm gonna play it off. You know what? You a hard working lady. I'm gonna let this one go. So, she was like, well, just find some place to put it in the kitchen. Now I'm thinking to myself, I've stayed in this apartment before, and they haven't had any upgrades as to why your kitchen floor, the tile on your floor is black when it came white. But you know what? I got my shoes on, so I ain't gonna worry about it. So we could sit in the living room watching Wheel of Fortune. Her daughter is just playing around, twirling in front of us while we're eating pizza, right? So she has a couch and then the love seat. We're sitting on the love seat. So, the corner of my eye, I see one of her house guests on the arm of the sofa. And it's just moving along on the seat. So her daughter hops up, twirling around, saying, look at me, look at me. I was like, okay, yeah, you're cute, little girl. You're cute, baby. Move out the way. I'm trying to figure out where this house guest is going. So she moves out the way. I lose sight of the house guest. So now I'm paranoid. I don't see him. I figure, you know what? He's moving slow. He's going to take his time. He's going to stay right there on that sofa. So I sit back, take a deep breath, start watching the rest of Wheel of Fortune. And I just happened to look down on my hand. And the house guest was right there on my hand. And it took like 20 seconds for it to register in my head. What you saw on that sofa is now saying hello. Sad to say, I flung him off my hand, got up, took my 2 liter and the rest of my plastic cups, and left. Blocked her number and never spoke to her again.
Oh my gosh, yo. Yo, I thought the constipation story that Emmanuel told was next level. Like, I mean, CEO, my goodness, bro. I'm trying to figure out like your level of patience, CEO. Like, where, like, yo, that is next level, like some Zen master type stuff. Cause I promise you, there was some stuff that you named that I just definitely would have been out of there way sooner, bro. Like Chris, man, I would have been booking up out of there. Oh my goodness, yo,
Well,
y'all, you got some
I'll
comments
say
behind
this.
that.
I knew
What's
when
that?
I looked at the kitchen that I don't care how fine she was. There were certain parts of the house I just was not gonna go to, and I'll leave it at that.
Yo, I feel yo. So you got plenty of comments in response to that. Brittany's like, no. Ebony says you can't make this stuff up. Nah, you can't. Mickey says hello. Says Portia. JD Clay says CEO. I like how you are being polite about the house guests. And Tiffany says house guests. Man, how? And PK Chronicle says there had to be signs of trouble prior to the meetup though. Like I gotta agree with PK here, man. Like, yo, you didn't see nothing that gave you any indication that it was gonna lead to that type of journey.
No, because it's not like I sat in her car and it was junky or something. Like we always met in public places or talked on the phone. So yeah, I had zero clue that I was walking into an abyss when I walked into her apartment.
Oh man, that's wild. That is wild. So Brian, man, coming over to you. I don't know if anything could get worse than that. I would hope not. But I'm gonna leave it up
No,
to Brian, man. Did you ever have interest in a woman, began to lose it? What was the story behind it?
I'm a bow out on this one because I can't top any of those stories. I'm much like
Right,
Emmanuel.
like
I've been in long-term relationships most of my adult life, so very few experiences with dating someone. Most of those relationships happened from somebody that I was working with or already knew. So it wasn't much of a dating or courting that we had to go through. So
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. I totally understand. And I promise you, like, I wouldn't want to follow that CEO story. Trust me, if I knew that story was coming, I would have came to you first. Cause I mean, that one right there, that one was for the ages, CEO. Like, I mean, I don't know. Does anybody had a situation that even comes close to that with a woman? Any men on the panel? Like, yo, CEO, that's next level, man. That's next level. So like it was a rap, like please tell me it was a rap like after that though, right? Like
Yeah,
after
like
you made it
I
out of there alive?
didn't like she was like, call me, let me know you made it home safely. I didn't even do that. So
Yeah,
to this
yeah, that's
day,
real.
she
That's real.
probably thinks I ran off the road and I'm in a ditch somewhere.
Yo, that's crazy. Yo, Tiffany says no furniture and dirt on the floor is definitely a bloody red flag. Oh man, yo. So I know we got 15 minutes left with my man Q and Chris. So what I want to do, let me go back to Ebony's question. We can start it off with that one. So Ebony was saying, I agree with Andrea. I get if they lose interest, but why ghost? Pop back up, and then when they end up single, string you along. When they do distance, shouldn't we just confront it head on? So let's kind of talk about the whole ghosting and popping back up. Like, how does this kind of tie into like the losing interest? Like, is this men playing out of bounds, or is this the natural course of action for men? What's your take on this, Q?
I think it depends. Some guys maybe they didn't have as much interest in the first place than maybe she thought, and that's why he's kind of in and out. It's kind of a relationship of convenience. And you know, for the people that go away and come back, go away and come back, there are some guys. Now I know this is not a popular statement, but I've heard a guy say this. He says that women are like Wi-Fi. Once you get the password, whenever you're in the neighborhood, you can pick them back up. And so there are a lot of guys who feel like, once they've established a relationship with a woman, they can always come back. So it's just a matter of convenience more so than anything else. So I just think that women have to be careful when it comes to dealing with certain guys. Once they leave, let them stay gone. Don't let them come back. And it's not real until you delete that thread and block the number or whatever you have to do. But don't allow someone to ghost you first. Be a ghostbuster.
I like that. I like that. Hey, coming over to you, Chris. What's your take when it comes to the ghosting and popping back up?
Hey, let me tell you, like my mama told this
Okay,
this guy she dated,
I
right?
know this about to be good.
So, my moms don't play. All right. She's straight real. She's in her 70s. She ain't got time for games. I mean, I'm 50. Me and Q, we ain't got time. All right. Look, we both married though. Look, at the end of the day, she told the guy, these are her boundaries. We talked about that earlier on the show. She said 2 years. That's it. After 2 years, there's no game. The game's over. Right. So this is where it leads to. It's got to lead with intentionality to I do, right? Ring, put a ring on it. Right. So at the end of the day, the 2 years came around. There wasn't no ghosting. She said, look, hey, where are we? Right. At the end of the day, she set her boundaries. She was really clear about her expectations. She managed those expectations and she held up to those expectations. Right. So they friends now. You can stay on the outside, but you can't come back. So we can only do what you allow us to do at the end of the day. Now, the other thing to that, I want to piggyback on the back end of that. Some of us don't know how to deal with compromise. We don't know how to deal with conflict, right? So we've got to learn. Some of us, look, I said this in my book. As a Marine, I was trained how to kill a man, but not how to love a woman. I wasn't trained how to do all that. So some of that comes to, I just don't know what I don't know because I didn't have good mentors or I didn't seek out that information advice. My role models that I had were broken. And so, boys, I like Emmanuel is one he's applied faith-based principles to the process, right? Not everybody's going to do that, but you got to understand, as a young man growing up, he learned how to apply that faith-based element to it. So he says, look, I'm not going to play around with you because I'm not a boy. I'm becoming a man, and men don't play with toys anymore, right? Men make real life decisions, and hopefully he can stay with one woman. I'm just saying.
Oh man, dropping gems, so many gems. So I know we got 10 minutes left with Chris and Q before they go. So let's actually get y'all take on the main question. I promise you, CEO Emmanuel, Brian, I'm coming back over to you guys. Just want to give Chris and Q, a little bit of shine before they leave. So let's get y'all take. Why do men lose interest in women? Coming over to you, Q. What's your take on it?
Oh, it could be a number of things. Maybe she's taking them too fast in the relationship. Maybe she changed her appearance. He fell in love with someone with long hair and she cut it all off. Maybe she's trying to change him. It can be a number of things. Or I'll tell you something that impacted a friend of mine. She wasn't supportive of him. He has this entrepreneurial spirit, and whenever he had some type of dream, she'd shoot it down every single time. And after he distanced himself from her and they broke up, all of a sudden his business took off. I don't think that's a coincidence. So you have some dream killers out there that can make you lose interest too. But I mean, I'll leave some for Chris, but I think there are a lot of things that can make a guy lose interest.
And Chris.
Hey, sometimes it's not always that he lost interest when you didn't have his interest to begin with, right? So at the end of the day, look, sometimes for some of us, it's about sport fishing, where we're just kind of, playing around, just playing the short game and not really focus on the long game, right? So you got to recognize that. Again, you got to value what you bring to the table, ladies, at the end of the day. Now, some of us just aren't emotionally available, right? We're tormented by the images of our imagination because it's difficult to secure an interest in a man who is not emotionally ready for that, right? It's going to be real hard to do. And then sometimes when he doesn't have interest, other things he leads to, it could lead to pornography. That could be something that stimulates his interest. Do you know what I'm saying? And so you just want to make sure he's attracted to you, in other words, right? So you give him some candy because that's what he wants. You know what I'm saying? But we lose different interests for different things. Q said it in a number of things he said, but sometimes women try too hard, right? And then it's like, nah, you trying too hard. You don't have to do all that. Look, I always said this, being in the field that I'm in sales. You can never say the wrong thing to the right person, right? You know what I'm saying? So if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It's going to happen without trying to coerce or cajole a person into being with you. If he don't see your value, then don't try to prove your worth. It's time to move on. Next. So what? Some will, some won't. As they said back in the network marketing days, right? Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Keep it moving.
And can
That's
I add
real.
one more thing? A few more things?
Of course. And definitely give us your closing words before you leave us tonight, my man Q.
Okay, absolutely. And because when he mentioned like the emotional availability type of thing, um, some guys haven't healed from their previous relationship, and that can be a reason why he's not treating you accordingly. He's still, damaged from the last incident. Sometimes it can be stress. I mean, we all know right now, gas is so high, you got to stand on a ladder to fill your car up. You know, so it could be stress. It can be finances. Maybe the job's not going well. Maybe some family issues, health issues that can cause issues. And then another thing, which sounds kind of simple, don't make it so easy for a guy. If a guy doesn't have to work for it, I don't know if he's going to appreciate you or not. Guys tend to kind of hold on to things they had to work for. So if you make it easy, then yeah, he may lose interest for that as well. But and as far as me just wrapping up, I really appreciate being on here, Jay. And I am gonna hang out for a little bit longer and listen to you guys. But your people in the chat room are great, and your panel is great. And I've been following you for a while, man. I've been rocking with you since like about 7 or 8 years now.
Yes,
And
sir.
so you've been on my show. And for those of you who've never listened to my shows, the Talk to Q radio show, where we have discussions similar to this, you can go to talktoq.com to check out my website and find all my social media information. But I'll probably hang out for a few more minutes, but I just wanted to get that stuff in, and I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming through, Q. Definitely happy to have you come on and drop so many golden nuggets on us. Chris, definitely leave us with your closing words. Let them know they can show you some love and support as well, man.
Hey, well, I don't have no show or nothing anymore, but one of the other things I would add to that, confidence, guys. Confidence is big, and that can be a lack of confidence in both male and female, right? So if he lacks confidence, it's going to be really hard to be the king of the jungle because he's unsure whether he's coming or whether he's going, right? So, and then a lot of men like a woman who's secure. And so the opposite of secure is insecure. And so when that shows up, it causes a guy to start to say, he scratches his head and be like, man, I don't know what I got myself into, right? So he's not really sure whether he can handle the full load. Again, it's different whether you're dating versus whether you're married, all right? So how you may handle that may be that he just can't run for the hills and be like, I'm packing up shop, I'm gone, right? So I said again, when you're married, you're in it to win it. You got to work through it. Am I right, Emmanuel?
Nah, Chris, Q, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate all of the gold nuggets you guys shared. You're both welcome to come back on whenever you want. But yeah, CEO Emmanuel Bryan, let's get back into this discussion, man. I want to know, first and foremost, coming over to you, Emmanuel, what would you say are some reasons why a man will lose interest in a woman? What's your take on it?
Yeah, just from a man's perspective, I would say, I really like how Chris mentioned porn. A lot of times that's the subject that we kind of hide up under the rug, but sometimes men have unrealistic expectations when they're in a relationship with a woman, whether you're married or, dating, whatever situation you're in. You have to know, where to put your expectations. If you're expecting this woman to do X, Y, and Z, or, you saw mom cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You saw mom wash all the clothes, and so now you expect this woman to do everything that you saw your mom do. Things like that, unrealistic expectations is huge when it comes to losing interest in a woman. I would say that's like the biggest thing. You put a woman in this position where you've been used to this all your life. Specifically for me, that's how I was raised. My parents were old school. My dad was retired, and my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She made sure meals was always ready for us. She made sure laundry was done. But then when I got married, I knew I can't have the same expectation for my wife, and so that's a very, very important thing to know, is that you got to know the woman that you're marrying. You got to know that the woman that you're with, you can't just assume she's going to do this, she's going to do that. You have to know who you're marrying, who you're with, things like that, so that you will have realistic expectations and truly understand what you're getting yourself into. Also, that confidence, like Brother Chris was mentioning, is huge. And all the answers, have just been great. There's so many different reasons why men can lose interest because it may not even be the expectation. It could just be, the stress or, the worries or the burdens of life. You feel like, the weight is on you. And so you just kind of put yourself out of the scene. It could just be an emotional thing that he's going through at a different phase in his life. So there's several reasons, but those are some few points I wanted to make.
I appreciate that. And coming over to you, CEO, what would you say are some reasons why men lose interest in women?
The same thing that the other gentleman said. I mean, it can be insecurity, it can be unrealistic expectations. For some men, it's conflict. They either grew up in a severely conflicted environment where all they saw was yelling and fussing and arguing, and it takes them back to a place that they don't want to be in. So, if you have a really strong woman and this guy grew up in a home where his mother was the strong one, but in society you hear people preach, well, the man has to be the provider, the man has to be the breadwinner, the man has to be this, this, and this. Well, for some men, how can he be something that he was never shown? And then he's afraid to tell this woman that he's in a relationship with, hey, I know what my role is supposed to be, but I don't necessarily know how to walk in it, out of fear of being criticized and belittled and ostracized and things of that nature. Also, when there is conflict, men also go to where they find peace. So if he has a wife that's always nagging him, neglecting him, not telling him, hey, you look good, you smell good, I appreciate the hard work that you have, but then he goes to work and the secretary that passes by on break realizes what kind of clone he has, or says, I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate you coming in early or staying late. This is the same stuff that he doesn't get at home. So that's sometimes where a man will lose interest. Well, he'll risk all of that, everything that he has, for this little amount of stuff that he's getting at work, not knowing that he might be walking into a landmine. So there are various reasons why a man will lose interest. Um, some men will lose interest because, heck, they're not interested in themselves. They don't know themselves to be able to really be 100% invested and interested in somebody that they're in a relationship with.
Oh man, gems. I love it. Coming over to you, Brian. What's your take on why some men tend to lose interest in women?
The way Mr. CEO ended is kind of exactly where I was going. There's
Mm,
nothing to add than what everyone else has said. For me personally, so I've only attempted to date two women past post divorce. It wasn't until I realized I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. So to Mr. CEO status point, it could be immaturity, it could be lack of knowing what you want. If you're not sure and confident, as Chris mentioned, in yourself, then you're not going to feel the desire to be with someone else or to complete someone else. I think you have to be whole and happy with yourself before you can be a part of someone else's journey. Um, and to that point, I stopped because I don't know what I want. So I just gave up. I ain't looking for nothing. I'm not dating
That's
anyone.
real.
The other problem or opportunity that I've had is that I've never approached a woman. And I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way. Most of my relationships, a woman has approached me, shown interest in me. So I've never had to chase or date. So a lot of the times, the women, the reason I feel like I may lose interest is because I typically weren't attracted to those women in the beginning. But I do have the personality that I don't discriminate. I'll kind of make everything, I can make anything work. I'm Virgo, introspective, whatever it is, I can make anything work. I think it's twofold for me. Number one, never really pursuing a woman that caught my eye, that I had interest in, and then not knowing what I wanted. Even my marriage was from that same type of situation. I didn't approach her. I wasn't initially attracted to her. We just grew. I mean, I loved her. I love her. So there's no love lost there, but just that me never having to approach or find someone that I was interested in or that I was attracted to. So till I figure it out, I'm just out the game for now. So
Yo, I can respect that. I definitely respect that. And I appreciate you for being able to acknowledge that, right? Because that's one of the things that you hear people talking about is continuing to pursue relationships and different people and situations, even though they know that there are some things that they have to work on within themselves still. So being at a place where you can recognize that is very, very important. So I appreciate you for opening up and sharing that, Brian, for sure. So here's my next question. Coming over to my man. All right, see you later, Q, man. We appreciate you, man. I appreciate you and Chris for staying on. You guys can feel free to drop off whenever you need to. And I definitely thank you guys both again for being on the show. So thank you. So the next question that I want to get into for us tonight is what things can women do that will make a man lose interest in them? We've been talking about things from the male's perspective, but what are some particular things that a woman may do that causes a man to lose interest in her? Coming over to you with this one, CEO. What's your take on it?
Some things that a woman can do, not be supportive, um, and not allow him to be the man of the relationship. I think those are things that a woman can do, which it's hard for some women because, especially women that are single mothers, single parents, because they have to play the role of, they have to play every role. So it's kind of hard for them to relinquish that role, especially when they've relinquished it in the past, only to be disappointed or only to have the ball dropped or only to have something cut off or things of that nature. Um, so for me, I think those are definitely two things. Um, I think listening to him, like not only saying, well, this is what I want. This is what I want in a relationship. This is what I want in whatever it is that we're doing. Take the time to sit back and figure out, okay, so what does he want? Because it is a partnership. It's not a sole proprietorship. It's a partnership. And in order for that ship to sail, you need a partner, or you just gonna be sitting there waiting for a strong wind to blow.
Oh, I hear that. Emmanuel, what's your take, man? What things can women do in particular that will make a man lose interest in her?
Jay, I would say dishonor and disrespect are huge.
Right.
Every man wants to be honored and respected. Especially if he's a good man. Any man really wants to just feel that respect. He wants to know that I'm honored in my household, especially if you're married. He wants to feel like even though I understand the man is not in control of the woman or anything like that, but he should definitely get the respect and he should get the honor. Another reason why I think men lose interest in women, in the woman's perspective, is because some women may start off with these things, always smelling good, always making sure they got their hair done, the nails done, toes are done. And then, you 5 years in, and then it's like, you got bunions, you ain't got your toes done. You canceled all your hair appointments. Now you just, throwing on the wig or whatever. And I'm not saying nothing against wigs. I'm not saying nothing against wigs at all. I'm all about the wigs. But if you're going to start off that way, keep it going. Keep it going. If I started off, getting the haircut, making sure I'm clean, you got to keep that going, or else that person will naturally lose interest, because that's what they were attracted to in the first place. I was attracted to you, because you kept yourself together. That's one of the main reasons why a lot of people get in a relationship or get married, because they're attracted to that person. So you got to make sure you keep those things intact. Make sure you're doing all the things that you did when y'all first got together. So that's huge.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that was hilarious, man. Yeah, you guys are funny, but y'all are dropping so many gems tonight. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching in the chat. If you guys have any questions that you would like these brothers to ask before we leave later on tonight, definitely feel free to drop them in there so that we can definitely dive into them. But coming up to you, Brian, what do you think are some things that women do in particular that could lead a man to lose interest in her?
Real quick, Emmanuel, I used to tell friends, start how you want to finish. Start how you want to finish. Just maintaining that same expectation. For me, what everyone's said, and I'd like to add also that a woman that's unwilling to change, is just so set in her ways. It's the way I've always done it. I'm never going to change. It's just the way it is. You're going to have to get used to it. I've encountered that more frequently than I wanted to. Just anyone that's so set and unwilling to, you ain't got to compromise, just unwilling to hear another point of view or another perspective, that I'll run the other way real quick.
Yo, that's real talk. Yo, I mean, Chris, you still here? You want to chime in on this one? By all means, man. I would love to hear your take if you down to share it.
Hey, man, these brothers are doing excellent, man. I'm just sitting back with my little notebook, and
Yo,
taking
I
notes.
hear that.
There's one thing I would share though.
Okay.
I don't want to be held hostage to your past.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good. Yo, with the
Just
mic drop.
leave that one alone.
Yo, that's real right there. That's real. I love that. I love that. So what I want to dive into next, coming over to you with this one, Emmanuel, is what things should women be monitoring to determine a man's interest level, right? Because I think it's something that, you don't want to just get to the point where you realize he's lost interest in you. You should be keeping your eye out to see that, hold on, man, am I moving in the right direction or moving in the wrong direction? So what would you say are some of those things that a woman can begin to monitor to know what level of interest a man has in her?
Yeah, definitely. I would kind of go back to what we talked about a little bit earlier with the attention span. How much attention he's giving you. If he's clocking out quick. For specifically, married couples, if and you in bed at night, and 1 minute he was, making sure he was talking to you, communicating with you, making sure your day was going good and all that, asking you questions. Then all of a sudden now he turned the other way, say, all right, I'm going to sleep, or it just depends, or if he's texting you throughout the day, how are you, checking on you, things like that, and then all of a sudden he just kind of stops that communication. You want to be careful with that, because it's like, okay, I'm not saying, one day he don't text you or he don't call you and check on you and see how you doing. I understand sometimes we get busy at work, get caught up with stuff, but you want to make sure he still is showing that care for you, or that love for you, by giving you his attention. So that's the biggest thing I would monitor, is his attention, to make sure that he's still showing that same love and care that he had for you in the beginning. That's huge. Make sure that he's giving you that same attention.
Okay. And Brian, what would you say on this regard? What things should women be monitoring?
I think same kind of availability, change in schedule, change in the way that you move and do things. You know, we're pretty much creatures of habit. You get to understand someone's schedule. If I'm working Monday through Friday and it's me and you on Saturday and Sunday, things start to pop up on Saturday and Sunday where I can't make it or I can't get to see you. Same thing with spending time together. Like if I'm constantly going over your place and those visits stop. So availability and schedule changes are probably a big telltale sign.
That's good. That's good. And CEO, anything that you would add with regards to things that women should be monitoring?
The same thing that the other two kings said. Pattern, communication. If a woman is in a relationship with someone where they always have this open dialogue as to where he, you know, expresses, hey, like if she knows his schedule, he goes to work at 9 and goes to first break at 10:15, and she normally gets a phone call or things of that nature. Then if that changes, and he has no explanation as to why it changes. Not saying that he has to check in per se, but when that pattern has been established, there's a hidden expectation on her part. Just like I'm sure there are things that she would do that is a expectation on his part to where if she doesn't do it, he may not ask for an explanation, but he would wonder what exactly is going on. So, like I said, I think if a pattern changes, if communication isn't as strong, and if that's one of the foundational parts of their relationship, then yeah, that's definitely something that she needs to pay attention to.
That's good. So, Brian, I got a question that just came to my mind. And we know that there's an interest level for both men and an interest level for women. How closely tied are those to one another? Like, meaning, are you monitoring a woman's interest level in you to determine how interested you are in her?
I think I I think there's a opportunity for both.
Okay.
If someone's really into you, you feel that, and you care for them, or you're attracted to them, you pour back into that person. And it also could be a point to where it's too much, too soon, too fast. They're pouring into you, and you just like, hey, just want to take it slow. Can we slow it down? Um, what's the phrase now? Everyone says matching energy. So I think if you're getting that, I think it's probably natural for most of us to reciprocate it.
I hear that. And Emmanuel, what's your take? When you look at the interest level that a woman has in you, do you want it to be equal with yours, more or less? Like, what do you look for?
Yeah, I think it should definitely be equal, but I do understand sometimes you run into situations depending on the relationship where the man may be more interested in the woman more than the woman is interested in the man. I've known people who, or, a guy knew a particular woman for years and tried to go after her, and she was like, no, I'm not into you. Then all of a sudden they ended up and been married for years. So it just depends on the situation. But I agree with Brian. Definitely, you want those energies to be matched. It shouldn't just be like I'm always gotta be the one to be the first to communicate or be the first to say, let's go out or something like that. It should definitely be equal. Because eventually, if you keep going after that person and then they're not really communicating with you like you are with them, it's kind of like the phrase we use in sales. You beating the dead horse. It's not gonna happen. So it just depends. So yeah, it depends on the situation, but I definitely would say energy level should match at some point, just depending on that situation.
Nah, I can dig that. CEO, what's your take? Are you trying to find an equal balance of interest when it comes to you and the woman that you're talking to?
I am. And I think balance is key because you never want at any point for either the man or the female to get the idea in their head that they're being thirsty because then they'll pull back entirely too much. And then it's hard to regain that balance again when that thought has been planted in their head that, well, maybe they're doing too much, or maybe they're coming off as being thirsty or coming off as being desperate when it's actually they just really like or really interested in this other person.
Nah, that's good. And yeah, it's really important, I think, for women to be monitoring the interest level that a man has in her. And I think that that's something that women may not do as often. So that's the one thing that I would encourage women to do is be more mindful of those patterns. Because what you guys said is right on point. Like that was the one thing that was going to come to my mind is human beings are creatures of habit. You know, even though a person may not quote unquote admit it or say that, I'm a creature of habit, if you're with a person or around them long enough, you'll begin to pick up on the cues and the different patterns that they have. And when that is the case, you can immediately start to identify when things aren't matching up the way that they should. So I would definitely encourage the ladies to definitely monitor the things that all of the gentlemen on the panel shared, looking for those patterns, looking for changes in his communication, the amount of attention that he's given to you. And I would even say the way he's communicating with you, right? So if the man used to, be having these long conversations with you, and then now, he just in and out, he giving you one or two word answers, and he don't really want to dive no deeper, that depth in the relationship is starting to, it's starting to be reduced. You going to like kiddie pool levels from going from, ocean levels. That those are different things that I would keep an eye on as well. Is once again, y'all know how they talk about with men being more reserved and not being so vulnerable and opening up. If a man was opening up to you and now all of a sudden those doors are starting to close, that's something that you would want to keep an eye on as well. Is like, how open is he to have these conversations with you and let you into that part of his life? So that was really good, man. All of you guys are dropping so many gems. So the other question that I wanted to
Another
ask
one,
next.
Jay,
Oh yeah, what's up?
real quick.
Yeah.
Another one for women is if you're dealing with a man who, in the beginning, you all are always on the phone talking to each other, all hours of the night, all day long. And so now you still communicate, but your communication is via text as opposed to talking on the phone. And he gives whatever reason. Oh, I work in a call center, so I talk to people all day long, so I don't feel like talking when I get home. Well, when she met you, you worked in the same call center, but that didn't stop you from talking to her the moment that you got off work. But now you come up with this asinine reason as to why you can't talk on the phone because you need your me time, you need to de-stress, but you text her instead of talking to her on the phone. So that's also something else that I would say that you need to pay attention to.
Nah, that's a good one. Good one. Anybody else have anything that they want to add to this one?
Yeah, I'll add Jay. Just some encouragement out to all the guys that are listening, all the men, kings. If you start off, buying that woman flowers and chocolates, roses, or whatever, keep doing that. If there's somebody out there you're in a relationship and you started off and you kind of stop, I've been guilty of that. Because life happens and then you get busy with your schedule and going back to the point, that CEO is saying, it's so important that you maintain that. Same with the, how we were talking earlier about women being able to continue to maintain themselves and everything like that. Same from a guy's perspective. We got to do what we got to do to keep the spark in our relationship, in the marriage. If you were calling, making reservations at, Roof Chris every other Friday, keep that going, and I understand things happen, schedules change, but keep that spark going. That's really important.
Nah, I appreciate you for sharing that for sure, for sure. So Tiffany had a question. Want to bring this one up to you, Brian. Tiffany says, if a man is less engaged on dates initially, is that an indication that he isn't really interested in you? What would you say to that one, Brian?
There's a lot into that. I mean, you can read a lot into that. He could be shy, he could be aloof, he could be nervous. Could take a few dates for him to warm up. I would say no. A lot of times, think of it when you go on a job interview and you think that you did horribly, and then you end up getting a call back and you get that job. So, his impression of the date may be different than yours. He may say, she was really interesting. I really enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed being with her. It could be a myriad of reasons why you may feel that way, but I don't believe that if he's less engaged. I mean, if he's staring at his cell phone, that's different. He's on his cell phone all night long, that's different. There's something visibly holding his attention and keeping it away from you. If he's just quiet or shy or reserved, I wouldn't chalk it up to him not being interested in you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Emmanuel, what's your take?
I agree with my brother Brian here. He could be nervous, he could be shy in the beginning, so you can't just assume, that he's not interested in you. He could be, just trying to figure you out too, especially in the beginning. Some men are not natural leaders. Some men are quiet too, so I wouldn't automatically just assume he's not interested in you. I would say give it time. And, if you're more of a leader as a woman, or you're more confident, maybe try to engage in different conversation and kind of maybe help him pull him out of that shell. Now, I would say be careful if he never comes out that shell, because you want to see how he's going to react. If he get excited, if he do get talkative, do he talk too much? Can he stop? Will he learn to say, all right, that's enough, I'm gonna let you talk? So that could be a good thing. He could be trying to just see you out too, and be a gentleman and give you that opportunity. So I would definitely say give it time. Don't let it just be, he's not interested in me just because he's not talking as much on that first date. He's not really engaged. So and also, yeah, if he's on his phone or he's too busy looking at, what the waitresses and waiters are doing, yeah, you might want to be careful with that. But definitely, so that's huge.
Nah, I hear that. I hear that. That's real talk. CEO, what would you say in response to Tiffany?
I wouldn't say that it is an indication that he's really not interested. Like everybody else said, he could be shy, he could be reserved. Um, this is unfamiliar territory for him. He could be analytical, and he could just be taking in everything that she's saying. He could be processing, trying to see, what will this merit a second date? Like the stuff that she has going on, does it match up with what I'm looking for? So it doesn't mean that he's not interested. It's just he's might be trying to figure out if there should be a second date. No matter how great the first date goes, like I said, he might be trying to see if your visions and your purpose and your motives all line up. So like no, it doesn't mean that he's not interested. It just it could be any one of those things that we've all mentioned.
Nah, that's real talk. So I know earlier you guys were sharing different stories about, losing interest in a woman. Um, I'm curious, are there any stories or instances where you actually had lost interest in a woman, you were ready to walk out the door, and somehow she was able to regain your interest and you stuck around? Brian, any situations that you've had in your past similar to that?
I don't go back, Jay.
Okay.
I don't go back. I So my ex-wife, um, we were back and forth for a long time before we got married. Um, there, and I don't know what that is. That could have been comfortableness. That could have just been knowing who she was. It could be fear of trying something new. Um, better the devil that you know, for lack of a better expression. But I understood her quirks, understood her things. None of them were non-negotiables or deal breakers, so I was able to take it, step it out. Before I lose track, I want to just a quick share. We're talking about dating. So I worked in options trading at one point, and there's a flex option where that allows a trader or customer to split flex. So we developed this dating term called the flex date, and it's an opportunity to get to know someone before you kind of go all out on a $200 date for dinner or whatever. So if there's interest in someone, meet them for coffee, tea, ice cream, if it's in the daytime or the middle of the day or whatever. If things are going well, so that's kind of where you can get away from whether someone's shy or reserved or whatever. You can kind of make a informed decision whether you would move forward with the date. So meet for coffee or a drink or tea. If things are going well, then you kind of flex to dinner or lunch or something else like that. Um, it's worked for me. It's also helped. There's a lot of times where I didn't flex to that second part. So we're not wasting any time. We're not wasting any money.
That's real. Nah, that's real. That's real. So, Emmanuel, coming over to you, were there any instances where maybe you broke up with a woman, you lost interest in her, and then you guys were able to work things out? She was able to regain your interest.
Uh, Not personally, I never ran into a situation like that, but for a similar example, specifically in our marriage, Angel and I, whenever there's something that we are noticing, like a change in our relationship, if communication is kind of getting low, or if it's just a lot of tension, in the house or something like that, we make sure we get together and talk about it and communicate, and that's very important for relationships, so that it doesn't get to that point where you just lose interest altogether. But if you're intentional about it, if a woman tells you, I feel like I don't have your attention as much, I feel like, you've been distant, address that ASAP. Don't just put it on the back burner and say, I'll get to it. No, address it ASAP so that you can keep that relationship going, and, there's no confusion or anything like that. It's important for you to make sure you keep that spark, as I mentioned earlier, by doing that. And so, like I say, my wife and I, we started young. So, most of my experience is just from our courtship, our marriage. But I would definitely say from a marriage standpoint, there has been times where things may get tense, and you have to address it right away and sit down, even if you got to take a day off, and work it out. Whatever you got to do it to be intentional about it, to get it back going, and say, okay, I understand that, I may have not been communicating, giving you the attention that you want, but I'll make sure that going forward this will happen. So that's just something that starts right here with your heart, and up here in the mind as well, your emotions, all that. So that's huge. But that's pretty much my experience with that.
No, that's good. And I appreciate you for sharing those gems of how you apply that in your marriage. That's very helpful. And CEO, coming over to you, man, any instances or any stories where you were ready to check out with a woman, or you were, ending that relationship and she was somehow able to regain your interest?
I can't say that that actually happened because that's a
Okay.
really complicated situation. Especially when you get to the point to where you're checking out. So you've accepted that, okay, this isn't going to work, things of that nature. I'll use the example of someone doing everything that you've wanted them to do throughout the relationship, but now at the end of the relationship, they're doing everything that you asked them, that you were asking them the entirety of the relationship. Um, it it's a good thing on one hand because you're like, okay, well now I see that this person is fully capable of doing it. But then on the back end, you're like, but I don't think this person is doing it because it's who they are. They're doing it to keep me from going somewhere. And when you get to that point, it's hard to build that relationship with somebody because you haven't healed from the hurt of them doing whatever it took for you to get to that point to where y'all were ending in the first place. So I can't say that I've ever been in that situation to where I broke up with somebody or we were about to break up and then they just did a complete 180 and then everything worked out.
No, that's fair. That's fair. So Tiffany had another question. Bring this one up to you, Brian. She wants to know, what one thing can a woman do in each of your perspectives to cause a man to shift the direction of the relationship either positively or negatively? What thing comes to your mind, Brian?
It's a good question. Um, just drawing on my own experience, I think negatively is what I've already mentioned. Just that unwillingness to change, um, even compromise, or to even have another or listen to another point of view. And not to say my point of view is correct, but not being open to that discussion certainly would cause it to go in the negative direction. Positive, I believe, let's say that we have a conversation and she's open to change or compromise, and she's willing to incorporate that into our relationship moving forward. So having an open and honest discussion, being able to communicate, getting all of our feelings, our point of views out, and then able to have someone walk away with some understanding of what's needed on both parts, and then willing to work towards that, will certainly move and shift it in a positive direction.
Nah, that's a great answer. Emmanuel, what's your take to Tiffany's question? What can a woman do? One thing that can shift the direction of the relationship, either positively or negatively.
As I mentioned earlier, as far as respect, if you respect the man that you're seeing or dating or married to, you respect him, it'll definitely affect it in a positive way. Same vice versa. If you disrespect him, dishonor him, it's going to be negative. Um, and one thing that is important, to make sure that you balance, I'm all about equal like authority in a marriage. The man is not here and the woman is here. There's equal, that's how I feel about equality. But definitely making sure that you respect your man and let him be the leader that, I'm a faith-based person, so let him be the leader that God called him to be, and you support him along the way. And if a man gives you a vision that he has, if he gives you his dreams, be honored and cherish those moments. That will, I'm telling you, if you really respect and honor your man's dreams, that will put your relationship into a total positive situation. Now, if that's just big to me. If a man share his dreams and his vision with you, and that's always the reason why you can't support it, or I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it should work, or something like that. It'll definitely go in a negative thing. And I also think that has a lot to do with respect. So honor, respect, support, those are all big. Communication is always huge. You have to communicate. If you don't communicate, if you specifically if you're married out there, and you out shopping and you just swiping cars without communicating what you're doing, that can go in a negative direction. Communication in so many different aspects is big. So all those are very important.
Nah, great points, Manuel. And CEO, what is one thing that a woman can do to shift the direction of a relationship with you positively or negatively?
I would say progression. Um,
Mm,
and on a positive note, continuing to evolve, continuing to progress. Um, Negatively, lack thereof. Like you can't be 40 with the same mindset, the same values that you had when you were 21 or when you were 18, when you were living carefree without a care in the world. So maturity should breed progression or should come with progression. So for me, that's really, really big because I'm not trying to be 45, 50 with somebody and we still struggling to figure out how we gonna keep the lights on and pay rent and things of that nature. Like, we should have a vision. And to Emmanuel's point, even if she doesn't necessarily agree with the vision or the that I have, she might have a really good reason. Because that vision that I have may not be a vision that God gave me. And he might speak to her and cause her through our conversation to allow me to have a different perspective and to admit, what, this vision that I've been holding on to for so long, yeah, it's really not a vision. It's a dream that I saw somebody else have come to fruition and I wanted it, but it's not deep down what I really want to do. So, um, communication, respect, everything that the other guys mentioned as well.
nah, that's good. That's good. And James had dropped some gems in the chat. He was saying, I think not just talking about it, but being about it, and then saying that actions speak louder than words. And they definitely do. They definitely do. So before we wrap things up, I had one other question that I want to pose to you guys. Let me get it so I can put it up on the screen. Where is it? Right here. So, what things right here do men do only for the women that they're interested in? So like I think that this is a good way to kind of help the ladies out, because if you can identify whether or not he's doing or not doing some things for you, maybe that could also be a sign that he's not very interested. So Brian, can you let us know, man, when you're interested in a woman, what are some things that you are willing to do for her and only her?
This is this may be a true story. I I enjoy cooking. I
Okay.
enjoy cooking for myself. Okay, so all my social media, There's all kind of food and pictures and posts and things like that. I do not cook for other people, and not some hard fast rule or whatever. And there's only been one or two women that I've actually said, "Hey, I really want to make you a meal. I want to cook something for you." I, so for me specifically, it's just sharing something personal or something that is unique or something that I enjoy doing or love doing individually, and then I want to bring you into that. I think there's a saying that says nothing honors a man more than a woman involved in his recreation. Um, I, for the sport of it, not because I'm some gun fanatic, I enjoy shooting range, and there's not too many people that'll accompany me to that. I like hiking, I like running, I like being outdoors. So I think if a man is willing to share those things that he does by himself and he wants you to be a part of that, I think that's a good indication or indication of something that's absolutely unique to you and to your relationship.
That's good. CEO, what would you say are some things that you would only do for a woman if you're interested in her?
Well, for me, when I'll tell a female that I'm interested in that um, I don't plan on coming into anybody's life if I don't think that I can make it better than what it already is. So I will go out of my way to make her life as easy as possible. Whether like I'm not one of those where I refuse to do laundry, I refuse to clean, I refuse to cook, I refuse to put gas in the car, things of that nature. Like for her life to be as carefree as humanly possible. That's how I express my love language as far as my expression to her to show that I'm fully invested, fully committed, things of that nature. And I mean, I'll sit there and watch shows I know good and well if I was by myself, I wouldn't watch. Like I wouldn't watch Lifetime or Lifetime Movie Network or The Real Housewife of this or The Real House Husband of that. I wouldn't do any of that. So to sit there and not only will I sit there and watch it, like there's a difference in just sitting there and you just being a figment as opposed to actually showing interest. Because there's going to be some stuff that I know that I'm going to want her to show interest in that she normally wouldn't. So if she shows interest in stuff that I like, that I get excited about, then it's only right that I do the same.
That's really good. And Emmanuel, coming over to you, man. What are some things that you only do for your wife, man? Like the woman that you're interested in.
Yeah, man, Jay, I would say anything that takes me out my comfort zone,
Mm.
anything that takes me out that spot where I'm comfortable. That's how she know that I love her. Example of that, my wife Angel, she loves roller coasters. I hate roller coasters. Like, why would a human being want to be thrown all over the, thing, and then you see the freeway over here, and then you see buildings. I mean, I just don't understand that. No, not knocking anybody that like roller coasters, but I'll do it for my wife. I'll do it just because I know it makes her happy. I know that she likes to get on roller coasters, so I'll do it. So anything that makes a man step outside of his comfort zone, you know, going shopping, whatever is something that you don't care for. Like CEO said, watching Lifetime and Hallmark, things that's actually going to be like, this really could be boring. I could be taking a nap. I could be doing something that I like to do. No, I'm taking this time to step out of my comfort zone to show you that, I love you, that I care for you, and this is my interest.
Oh man, yo, that's good. That is so good. Oh man, gentlemen, I have so enjoyed tonight's show. The chat has been live. I appreciate everybody. I think Tiffany's definitely our MVP for tonight. She was dropping so many amazing comments, questions throughout. So I definitely want to say thank you so much, Tiffany, and everybody else for tuning in for tonight's show. Just want to go around to each of you gentlemen, allow you, if you have any questions for one another or for me, feel free to ask, or if you have some last or closing words that you like to leave us with. So let's start with you, my man, Brian.
Really enjoyed being on the show. I was a little nervous. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice at first, but it's a good warm up. I want to apologize because I knew you've been doing it for a while, and I think I only tuned in maybe for the first time last week. Definitely going to start tuning in, catching the shows, listen to the topics. I'm on the email. But I appreciate you having me on. I had a great time. Emmanuel, Mr. CEO, Chris, everyone. So thank you for having me.
Oh man, thank you, Brian. It's definitely been fun, man. I honestly I didn't know you was nervous. If you hadn't said it, I wouldn't have known it, man. You were definitely holding it down, all of you gentlemen tonight, man. I'm so grateful to have you on. Like I said, last week you were dropping so many amazing comments and questions in our chat during last week's show. And by all means, man, would love to have you come back on if you're ever interested. And by all means, join us in the chat. Always happy to shout you out and share the comments and the things that you share with us in there as well on future shows. My man, CEO, man, thank you again for making your second appearance on this show, man. Any last questions for anybody on the panel, or are there any last or closing words you want to leave us with tonight?
I just want to say thank you for the invite. This is almost equivalent to sitting at the barbershop chopping it up with the fellas. Um, I think it's a blessing to allow the females just a peek on the inside of our brains and how we think and things of that nature. Ultimately, with the goal of being able to bless somebody, to help somebody, that they might have had questions or they might be at a crossroads in their life in dating and figure out, okay, you know what, based off of listening to this show, this is what I was doing wrong, and now this is what I can do right going forward. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate laughing and learning from all of the kings that you had sitting at the round table.
Oh man, thank you, and we definitely appreciate the good laugh you gave us. I mean, like that situation and that story was hilarious, CEO. And I always love your genuineness, your transparency, and your willingness to not only drop golden nuggets on us, but to give us those insights and those peeks into some of those experiences in your life that all we can do is look back and laugh at them, and allowing us to be able to share in that with you. Always a pleasure having you on the show, man. It was definitely a joy. You got an open invitation if you ever want to come back as well. And my man, Emmanuel, man, thank you so much for joining us. Did you have any questions for any of the men on the panel, or do you have some closing words you'd like to leave us with on tonight's topic?
Yeah, Jay, I just want to say thank you, man, for the opportunity to have me on. I just consider that a true honor, that you would invite me. I want to say, thanks to all the other guys that were on the chat tonight. It's just been an awesome time. I really enjoyed it. Like CEO said, man, it's like we all at the barber shop just having a good time. So I definitely appreciate it. Jay, man, I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing, man. This is making such a huge impact, in relationships, dating, and marriage and singles. So keep doing what you're doing. And, I've just commanded blessings to continue to just chase you down, man. So super proud of you. And thank you so much for having me on.
Oh man, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. It's definitely a blessing to have the support of you and all of the fellas that's on the panel. Also want to thank Q and Chris again for joining us for the first hour of the show. It was definitely a joy having all you guys come on here together and just share so many valuable insights to the ladies who've been tuning in. So next week we'll be back. It won't be a men chat next Tuesday at 7, but we will have another great topic. I think my man Jason will be back on the show. We're going to be talking about navigating long distance relationships. So if that's something of interest, make sure you join us next week on the show at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, you guys have an amazing and a blessed evening. Fellas, definitely stay on the line for we can close it out. But until then, I'll catch the rest of you guys next week. Stay blessed.